Feminism is obviously at play here. However, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that this right here is more the result of materialism. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video. So we find ourselves with a case of a liberal woman having this issue where anytime she goes to look for a man or anytime she wants to date a man, she finds out that the more traditional provider type tends to be a little bit more conservative. So I'm going to play you guys the full TikTok here in a second, and we're going to go through with this. And I'm also going to explain why it is that feminism is definitely at play here, but I think it's a lot more related to materialism. And I forgot to mention this in the opening segment, but I want to kind of leave some leeway for it. But a lot of it has also got to do with entitlement, gratification, or self gratification, and social media. Now, guys, before I play this for you, you're probably going to think it looks a little bit tacky because you're obviously going to see how it was that I used my phone to screen record this. I don't have TikTok because TikTok is, as we already know, I'm just rolling the words across the screen for you guys. And I refuse to own the app for that very reason. But still, though, we're going to go ahead and kind of run through this, and we're going to talk, and not to mention there's also an article from the New York Post about this. And we're going to go through some of the points that the article had. I've already read it 3 or 4 times, but just a few very, very important things that need to be highlighted. Let's go ahead and roll this.
Do you want to know one of the saddest realizations I recently had? Was that as a liberal woman, it is really hard to find a man who's willing to play the more traditional masculine role in the relationship in today's day and age, who is not a conservative. A man who wants to pay on the first date, who wants to open your door, who has that want and desire to take care of you. And
okay, let me just go ahead and start by saying this here. It is going to be extremely rare, damn near impossible to find a man who is liberal that is traditional, especially in today's world. So you're already going to have some problems right off the bat there, hon. Next thing is this right here, and we're going to be talking about this a lot in this video here. Why it is that a lot of men, especially conservative men, are not looking to get married, especially to a liberal woman. But we got to address her problem first. As I said before, that I think this is a little bit more, and let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. It does mean feminism is definitely at play here, but to go on top of this, you've also got this other problem, and this other problem is obviously the fact that we are living in a much, much more materialistic world. When you base your life amongst material goods, when you're constantly going out for self gratification, I'm pretty sure some of you guys out there have an Instagram account, and you may even follow. And by the way, there's some conservative women who do this too. All you gotta do is just go to like Instagram, and you'll see them all over the place. Girls with guns, this type of stuff here, sexy women for Trump, right wing hotties, all that type of stuff there. Don't act like conservative women do it. Don't do it too. But still, at the same time, though. Me obviously being a conservative male, I obviously would prefer a conservative woman or at least a moderate woman. I can actually deal with a woman that's got a little bit of liberal in her, but as long as she's raised right and knows not to do the things that I'm about to go through here in this video. But here's the deal though. More than likely, you're not going to find somebody on the left who's got those traditional values. I mean, last I checked, the left loves to slam men as toxic. You don't remember those Gillette ads talking about toxic masculinity? I mean, honey, I hate to tell you this, but toxic masculinity, as how do I say this? It's been keeping people alive. It's been saving lives ever since 1775. I always go with 1775 instead of 1776 because that right there is the actual official or the unofficial start of the American Revolution, which in a lot of ways you could probably go all the way back to 1773, maybe even before that because of all the incidents that occurred here on American soil, maybe even the French and Indian War if you want to go that far as well. But still, though, the thing is this right here. It's going to be extremely hard to find somebody that is, how do I say, liberal and traditional. I mean, the most traditional that you're going to get out of liberal men is this right here, hon.
Folks, today we're going to talk about things that aren't necessarily dog whistles, but are, at least in my opinion, pretty big red flags and will make me instantly suspicious if I see them in anyone's profile. If you've got the Orthodox cross anywhere in your bio, if you don't know what that is, it's pretty easy to Google. Just Google the Orthodox cross.
Yeah. Right now, the traditional liberal male, which does not exist, believes that it's okay for dudes to just come on up inside and just ramrod their wives, and they think that it's actually emasculine if you don't allow that to occur. We'll have a project out on that on come Thursday, so make sure you guys stick around for that. And before we get to these reasons and before we get to additional responses, I want to say this right now. There are not too many men who are, how do I say this? There's not too many men that are liberal that aren't phonies. Let me go ahead and say this really quick. You guys know me. I go after the left all the time. I call them the infect. I'm talking about the leftoid, the lefty, the leftist men that you saw right there, the soy boys. A lot of times they play the whole feminism shtick because they have an extremely low self-esteem and they think it's an avenue for them to get laid. That's the real reason why they do that. So, honey, if you think you're ever going to find yourself a liberal man who's actually masculine, you're barking up the wrong tree. Now, with that right there being said, let's go ahead and get to some of these things that she said. Self-gratification, constantly posting to Facebook, of course, what you see in the universities, which, by the way, is leading to much, much more liberal women, especially women in the cities. Obviously, you're not going to find a male who's actually not, you're not going to find a male who's traditional but yet liberal. Those men typically tend not to exist. I mean, it's amazing to me why it is that you would want to find a man who's liberal, especially given all the soy and what you saw there and how they look and how it is that they don't keep themselves in the best physical shape. And those that typically do are typically full of soy and they have some of the craziest worldviews in the world. Now, let me ask you ladies a question. Why in the world do you suddenly want a man who's a provider? Is it possible that maybe you want a man that you can have children with? Is it possible you want a man that you can have a life with? You see, the thing is this right here. Most conservative males typically tend to be working class. I mean, we'll be talking about this in more projects in the future, why it is that men typically tend to not make as much money. And to go on top of that, this right here, by the way, is I would say probably the 99%, because there's always that top 1% that just gets all the girls, which, by the way, is something we've been seeing a lot with the online dating thing, where the top 1% of men are getting pretty much all of the extremely attractive women. And, of course, after a while, more and more men just say, you know, look, I can't be a 1%. I can't do this right here. I can't do that there. And a lot of men are getting turned off by women in general. But at the same time, though, the thing, and don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second, but the thing is this right here. You're not going to find too many men who are traditional that are liberal. I mean, a lot of these liberal men, they oftentimes castigate men who are somewhat moderate. They call them toxic. It's what the left does. They call all men toxic. If you are a black man who happens to be a conservative, you are now suddenly called an Uncle Tom. If you are a white man that is conservative, you will be called toxic, okay? And a lot of men just don't want to deal with this. So therefore, when you do find a man that is somewhat on the conservative side and you present very, very liberal politics, don't be surprised if that man does not say, to hell with this, I don't want to be with somebody who maybe 5 years from now is going to turn their back on me. Or do like, say, in the case of what happened with one individual in the state of Texas where his wife actually decided to transition his kid, and of course he ended up losing the court case. I got to say it that way because of the algorithm. The algorithm is very, very funny. But there are other reasons why it is that men, quite frankly, don't want to deal with women who are actually liberal. And obviously, when you do even, and you got to understand something else too. You got to understand something else too. When you date a woman, when you get to a relationship with a woman, typically you do a first date. It's kind of an interview. Second date, you tend to know a little bit more about one another. I typically try to stay away from politics on the first date. And of course, after a while, you begin to see who people are. A lot of men, after a while, when they see that you're okay with the whole BLM Marxist communism crap and that you're okay with the whole trans thing, after a while, they're probably going to look at the situation and they're probably going to say, you know what, I'm just wasting my time here. Let me go find someone else. I mean, we need to applaud our conservative women. Maybe, ladies, what you should do is, I don't know, maybe adjust your beliefs a little bit and actually do some actual honest-to-God research. You know, it could go a very, very long way. I want to have my own autonomy. I want to have my own independence. Sweetheart, let me explain something to you right quick. When you are in a relationship and when you are in a marriage, if a man allows you to just have full autonomy, it can lead to some pretty bad things. Not saying that you're not free or anything. Obviously, in most relationships, there is some level of freedom. But you want autonomy. You want to have full freedom, full autonomy. Well, if you want full freedom and full autonomy, then I guess you're better off on your own. Go ahead and get used to being single, because if you're constantly free and you have all this autonomy, most men are not going to trust that because they're going to automatically assume that you're out there getting stuck to by someone else. What about finances? What about money? I just give you my check. I just give you my checkbook. I just go ahead and give you my credit card. You've got full liberty and full autonomy to do whatever you want, hon. Next thing you know, my ass is broke because you went out there and bought a Louis Vuitton freaking pocketbook or a Gucci or something like that costed $700 to $1,000 damn dollars, probably even more than that, depending on what state you live in. men are starting to take notes about the traditional housewife thing, the whole baby making thing. I hate to tell you this, honey, but when you get married to a man, children is typically expected. Now, for a long time, I personally, and I know everybody makes adjustments as they get older. For a long time there, I thought that dating women that were a little bit too young, I'm talking about like if you're like 50 and she's like 19, obviously that's way too damn young. That's too much of an age gap. If you're 45 and she's like 20, that's just too much of an age gap. I saw a certain content creator talk about this and I was like, dude, because believe it or not, I actually watch some of these red pill programs, and there's some things that they say I agree with, and some things I think they may go a little bit too far. I'll probably do a video on that at a later date. Just know that you can extrapolate good things from just about anywhere, but I'm not a red pill guy, and I'll make a video on that in the future, why that's the case. You'll probably hear some of that come out of me during the whole open marriage thing and why it's a bad idea. But the thing is this right here. In these cases, when it comes to age, I look at that age gap and I'm like, okay, she's just going to end up leaving his ass in 2 years. So do us all a favor and stop going on about how she's your peace of mind. No. If you're 40 and she's 28, okay, cool, good to go. I could probably go that low depending on the maturity level of the girl, because I grew up with, I've seen a lot of ladies my own age being in and out of the bar my entire life that had a lot of issues. Issues that, quite frankly, started back in high school, and they still got the issues today, and they're damn near 40 years old. It all depends on the situation. It all depends on certain cases. Obviously, situations are different in small towns, rural towns versus bigger cities, but I'll digress for the moment being. When you get married, you're expected to take on the much, much more traditional archetype. Now, I'm a little bit more lenient to a certain degree because I grew up in a two-parent household that eventually divorced. However, I knew where my mother was working at. I knew where my father was working at. And here's the deal. I'm of the mindset that when you have my children, I'm obviously going to want you to stay home with my children at least until they go to school. When they get old enough to go to school, unless maybe you're working out of the house or whatnot, okay, now it's a good idea if you take a second job or this, that, and the other. I mean, unless, of course, you've got like a YouTube channel, social media account, and maybe you're running it out of the house. For the most part, you're going to be expected to be the traditional wife archetype, especially if you deal with most men who have, by the way, happen to be, for the most part, pretty well conservative. And you can actually see in younger men that they're becoming more conservative themselves. Don't worry, we'll have a video on why millennials are starting to turn a little bit more to the conservative side, or excuse me, not millennials, but Gen Zers. And not to mention the fact that I've got to bring it up all the time that conservative households typically tend to have more children per household than liberal households. Let me end the video on this note here. You seem like a pretty attractive girl, okay? You seem okay. I understand you're getting roasted, this, that, and the other. You've got a TikTok account. You've obviously got some fame. But dudes are also seeing women like film themselves in the gym, and they try to roast the guy for maybe glancing or whatnot. Dudes are seeing women act in some very, very bad ways, some extremely uncalled for ways. Most conservative men, or most men in general, as I mentioned before, typically tend to be pretty well conservative. They have a certain expectation, okay? And at this moment in time, ladies, I understand that you're looking a lot better. You're going to the gym. I'm happy that you're doing all this stuff. But here's the problem, though. The more and more we go down the road, it seems to me like men are starting to become the prize. You're going to see here in the near future that men are going to be needed. So, honey, I'm telling you now, it might be a good idea that you actually do some research and maybe adjust some things, not only in your personality, but also adjust some things in your political beliefs. Because men don't like to be with women like this.
But am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage, okay?
Yeah, I know Anna's been kind of moderating herself here recently, but still at the same time, though, men typically tend to not want to be with that. We typically tend to want to be with women who are, I wouldn't say fully submissive or anything, but definitely at least have some form of common sense. And also are loyal and, yes, attractive as well, okay? If you think you're going to find a traditional man who's on the left or the much, much more left-wing side, honey, you're basically just going to be dating another chick, which, by the way, would then make you a lesbian. Or you're going to be with a guy who's probably a serial rapist or some shit like that there, because oftentimes a lot of these male feminists typically tend to have some extremely shady past and do some extremely shady stuff. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like this content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this. If you have earned your subscription, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so that way you guys are notified when these videos come out. Also, something else too, please share the video, share it with your friends and family, share it to Facebook, share it to whomever, and please leave a comment in the comment section. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts. If there's anything I missed, please say so in the comments. I'll see you guys later.